Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at energy fuels. It is time for another update, and today we'll be discussing the potential initial 5-wave structure we have formed here to the upside on the nano time frame basically. But before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And here we are tracking this idea of a larger 1-2 setup where now we would like to see a third wave unfold to the upside. Now for such a wave 3 we would have certain expectations, and that would be mainly to reach here the 138.2% extension of the wave 1 around the $130 level within an impulse in this area, yeah? Meaning this must be a 5-wave move, but it must also be an impulse, yeah? Not something like a diagonal structure or even an ABC movement. And in fact, failing to build such a movement to the upside would have certain implications in this area, in this region, and yeah, basically it could branch into two scenarios. So we could have maybe 2.5, let's say. So we could have this as a double 1-2-1-2 setup where we would be building here an internal wave 1 of an even larger wave 3, and for the long term this would have quite bullish implications actually. So we would have even larger targets for the overall wave 3 if we are to build here an internal 1-2 setup. But yeah, we would need to have first a larger correction in a wave 2 before starting the even stronger movement in a wave 3. But then if this doesn't work out, we should also be prepared for the idea of a larger ABC structure to be unfolding in this area, where in fact the ideal target for the wave C is the 100% extension of the wave A, which is much more reasonable of a target. It is much more reasonable for us to get to those levels within this structure, as we have already built the largest portion of the trend most likely. And while there are other possible interpretations, it is a low, not necessarily a high probability scenario to get here within a singular wave 5, yeah? Even if we formed here a bottom within the wave 4, if we are to already be in a fifth wave, it is not necessarily a high probability scenario to get here to the ideal target of a larger wave 3 within this internal fifth wave. And yeah, I am probably expecting with a higher degree of possibility to fall through in one of the other scenarios where we won't manage to build here a third wave directly. Now with that said, in the smaller time frame we have been tracking this uptrend for quite a while, yeah, basically ever since we were around those levels. I believe I remember it was above the $4 levels, and it was during a correction in this area, but we have been tracking a potential uptrend in this area, and it has managed to even build a potential impulse in this area. And if we manage to continue and build a fifth wave to the upside in a 5-wave move while also holding the 50% retracement in this area, we can continue to track here the idea of an impulse. But if we fail to hold the 50% retracement, we would need to resume to the idea of a larger diagonal pattern being born here, and we would also need to completely discard the idea of a larger fifth, or not a fifth wave, of a larger wave 3 to be forming here in a more direct fashion, yeah? A wave 3 must be an impulse. This doesn't really work out with those interpretations, and I wanted to make this more clearly visible. But yeah, we have here this area of support for the wave 4 that goes all the way down to ideally the $10.7 level where the 50% retracement is, but we can stretch it down for a broader interpretation down to the $8.6 level. And here in the smaller time frame we ideally have already formed a bottom within the wave 4. We have sufficient waves to the downside. We have a 3-wave pattern, yeah, we have an ABC structure we are tracking, and we are looking for a fifth wave to be unfolding already, with the caveat that so far we only really have a 3-wave move to the upside from the current local low. And while that doesn't make it impossible for a fifth wave to be ongoing right now, it does hurt a bit the likelihood of the internal structures we can track internally. Now in this area we are also tracking the possibility of continuation and the reset within the wave 4, and that is in the yellow interpretation, where we have basically pushed into the first level of resistance, the 38.2% retracement, before getting a more significant rejection and yeah, basically starting this entire correction. But fortunately to the downside we haven't managed to build an impulsive structure, and I would rather prefer to be tracking this as an ABC movement where yeah, I am continuing to track continuation in a higher pattern, higher in a larger pattern, in a possibility of an ABC movement, but the exact structure to the upside might vary wildly as yeah, indeed there are very many interpretations that could work out within this movement to the upside. Now in this area we have managed to push basically into the last level of resistance for a larger ABC movement that could be unfolding in this yellow interpretation. Now even if we form here a wave C to the downside, we could form a new low and still manage to hold the area of support for the larger wave B in the blue scenario. It is not necessarily a problem, although since we have managed to form here an internal initial 5-wave move to the upside, I would actually highly prefer that we start this larger movement already. And for this idea we can track here a 1-2 setup. Now again, other interpretations are possible. This could be an A-B setup, but we would still highly expect at least another wave to the upside within this movement, yeah? Even if we form here only an A-B-C structure within a larger wave 1 or a larger wave A, doesn't matter. We still have an interesting setup to be watching out for in this area, where, yeah, we can actually draw here an area of support for this correction. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention in this area, yeah, once again, so we did push perfectly into the 38.2% retracement, the larger wave 4 correction in green. We have retested that and we have continued to form this structure. From this low, we can track this larger pattern to the upside, and as I mentioned even in the previous video, it is quite normal within corrections, within other pattern corrections. So we're tracking here an A-B movement. It is perfectly normal to retest larger support area levels, yeah, for example the 38.2% retracement in green, before continuing in this larger uptrend, and it was quite a positive sign that we are on the right path to tracking a 5th wave in this area, as we are basically testing those levels before continuing in our uptrend. We are building a more reliable structure. Now it would be nice to manage to build here a more clear 5-wave move to the upside initially, but yeah, it is what it is. Now we are tracking internally and we have such a structure, which is why it is so interesting to look here for a wave 2 correction in the blue scenario, where we have the area of support now between the $14.9 all the way down to the $13.9 level, where if we break here below the 78.6% retracement, it would be a signal that we should likely expect this structure to actually get an extension to the downside within this yellow interpretation, yeah, possibly forming a complete reset of the wave 4 in green, possibly just a reset of the internal correction in blue in the wave B. But now again, we have this interesting setup, and we are looking for the next wave to the upside, where technically we could have already bottomed. Yeah, basically we can track here an internal ABC movement that could have formed. We have pushed here into the 50% retracement, and if we want, we can even look for some ideal targets to the upside, where for a wave 3, as we are tracking here in blue, I would like to see the $18.5 level. That would be the ideal target. And if it is really only an ABC structure, the 100% extension would be the ideal target at the $17.3 level. And for now, there isn't much else to add. It is too small of a time frame to track this internal movement to the downside, and while it is very easily possible to see extensions, we have enough waves, we have sufficient structure to consider this correction complete in honestly more than one ways. I could be tracking this as a WXY as well, and it would be perfectly fine to have a full structure and, yeah, probably have even better proportions than what I suggested here as an ABC. But the point is, it doesn't matter too much. We are tracking, we are focusing here on the levels, and if we manage to break here above the last swing high at the around the $15.9 level, yeah, let's say the $16 level, it would be a signal that this structure is likely going to extend in the next wave to the upside. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.